Some of you may have seen what we termed our natural-born clicker study. We did this several years ago with Starcom as well as Dakota. And we analyzed, well, who are these people that are clicking on display ads? And back in 2007, what we found was about 1/3 of the internet audience was clicking on ads. 2 years later, that number was cut in half. 16% or so of the internet audience clicked on ads. So you now start thinking about the implications of that. And if your ad campaign, which I would imagine it is, or I should say many of your ad campaigns are optimized to the click, you're now targeting 16% of the population. So right away, you've basically taken out 84% of the internet population. But it's worse. You start looking at now the composition of those people who are clicking, and what you find is that 8%, these moderate heavy clickers, are driving 85% of clicks. So now you're down to optimizing your campaign on 8% of the population. But it gets worse. We start looking at who those clickers are, and it's by and large skews to the lower income demographic. And what we determined and found out was the reason why they're clicking was actually as an extension of their online entertainment experience. So the ads on which they were clicking were not the ones that I would imagine for the majority of you in the room, but rather, the whack-a-moles, the baseball games, and the golf games. So you say, well, I can still evaluate the click-through rate. And the bar chart looks fantastic until you look at the scale on the y-axis. So for those of you who may not be able to see that, it's at 0.1% is the average click-through rate. That's fairly consistent by country. It's fairly consistent across each individual vertical as well. And last but not least, we've run a lot of studies that show that there's close to zero correlation between someone who's clicking on an ad and their brand awareness, whether it's aided or unaided, message association, brand favorability, and so on. So you think about this now from a display perspective about what you're trying to do with your display ad. And I think we've got a very substantive body of evidence that shows that there's little to no correlation there. So for those of you who may not have been able to see some of those numbers, let me give this to you graphically. So these 1,000 people have been exposed to your display ad. And my one question is, the one person out of the 1,000 who clicked, does that mean there was no value whatsoever to these other 999 people who were exposed to the ad? Can you name me any other medium where this truism exists? That someone who was exposed to a TV, a print, or listened to a radio ad and didn't stop what they were doing and click, call, or whatnot, that there was zero value to that. But that's what we've done, I think, as an industry by this reliance on the click.